Welcome to the Archaeology Studio. Today's episode considers how to write clearly in archaeology. I prepared this video partly because I have seen too many examples of ineffective writing in archaeology. Most of my colleagues write in unclear and convoluted styles. In my view, any writer can avoid these problems through rudimentary writing techniques. My own writing is not perfect. Nonetheless, I can learn how to identify the weaknesses and then make other choices. Many of the problems of writing in archaeology relate with establishing the context right away in terms of the location of a site, the associated time period, and the material evidence of a specific discovery. Ideally, readers can learn this information through the title of a work, such as when reading the headline of a news report. Whenever I write about my research, then I know that most readers are unfamiliar with the names of the sites and the geographic areas. Therefore, I always clarify this information, and I include a map with indications of all of the places that are mentioned in the text. Later in the text, I can refer to any of these named places, and I can feel confident that readers will be able to follow the information. Likewise, I always mention the date range of my discoveries in convenient calendar years that everyone can understand. For instance, I might refer to a chronological sequence that extended over the last 3,500 years. In other cases, I might refer to the findings from a specific site layer dated within the range of 1500 through 1100 BC. Furthermore, I always clarify the material evidence or the scope of my investigation. In some cases, I focus narrowly on the decorations on earthenware pottery or on the forms of rock art in caves. In other cases, I look more broadly at how people lived in their ancient environment, or how an ancient community responded to a change in sea level. In my approach, I imagine someone reading about my work for the first time. This hypothetical reader would need to start with the basic context of what was found, where was it, and how old was it. Here is one example of clear writing in archaeology. People first lived in the remote Pacific Islands around 1500 BC, specifically in the Mariana Islands, as evidenced through extensive radiocarbon dating at several sites across the region. Now here is an example of ineffective writing. C14 suites from published reports were analyzed through Bayesian models and found to be redundant at the 2 sigma range by 3,500 years Cal BP. Here is another example of ineffective writing. Human colonization of Western Micronesia has been dated about 1500 BC. And now here is one more example of ineffective writing. It is important to note that there are several sites in Western Micronesia that have yielded dating results around 1500 BC for samples obtained from their basal cultural layers. In the example of clear writing, one sentence communicates the significance of the study, the geographic area, the time period in question, and the category of the supporting evidence. Following this established context, the writing then can continue to elaborate on all of those key points. Moreover, this example uses ordinary words without relying on any jargon or specialized conventions. Additionally, this example uses a straightforward and direct sentence structure. General readers can identify all of the key parts of this one sentence. The content is accessible, even among readers who dislike scientific writing or among readers who regard English as a second or third language. Any reader can identify the significance of the topic, in this case referring to the evidence of when people first lived in the remote distant islands of the Pacific. Most readers can appreciate the impact of knowing when people first lived in any region of the world. In this case, the evidence has pinpointed the Mariana Islands as the place of first inhabitation of the Pacific Islands region. The supporting evidence includes radiocarbon dating at several sites. Most readers would anticipate for the text to continue with presenting two major aspects of the research. First, the text should disclose the technical details of the radiocarbon dating evidence as the essential primary support of this study. Second, the text should consider how the evidence can change or improve the status of scientific knowledge about how and why people in ancient times moved to live in these new regions of the world. Most of my professional colleagues in archaeology have written in the styles of these three ineffective examples. In a recent personal discussion, a few of my colleagues defended their approach as detached objectivity in scientific writing. In my view, this approach certainly is detached and indirect, but those qualities are unnecessary for scientific objectivity. In fact, the detached and indirect forms of writing always make a text more difficult to read. As proof of my point, I offered the examples in this video. In standard academic training, most students learn how to write in these ineffective styles. In the most extreme cases, students learn that any other writing style is unprofessional and unacceptable. As a result, most of the published academic literature in archaeology has been awkward, convoluted, potentially misleading, and ultimately inaccessible for general readers. In my view, my colleagues like myself can avoid all of these problems simply by learning how to write more clearly and effectively, as I have demonstrated in this video. In concluding this episode, I hope that I have illustrated some of the key points of how to write clearly in archaeology. What are your thoughts about these issues? And what further examples might be helpful? Please remember to subscribe to this channel, share with your friends, and explore more online videos with the Archaeology Studio.